We've gone over the default options for conditional formatting in this box, the cell rules and top bottom, data bars, color scales, and icon sets. You can also use a formula to determine your criteria. So let's click this new rule button. And we've seen this box before, but you can select this very bottom box to use a formula. To use just a simple example, let's say that we wanted to color cell B4 right here based on the value that's in B2. So in this box here, we need to type a formula that will return a true or a false. And if it returns a true, then we can set the formatting for that condition. So let's type equals, and then you can either click B2 or just type B2, and then we'll say equals, and then we'll type blue. Notice you'll have to put those in quotation marks. And this is a formula that you typically wouldn't write within a cell, but this formula is written in a way that it will return a true if B2 equals blue. If that's the case, we'll come here and format and pick a blue cell color and click OK, just as an example. So because this cell value is blue, the formatting is showing up with that fill color that we picked. If I put anything else into this cell, the formatting will default to the blank format. So let's come here and add another rule just for fun. And we'll type equals B2 equals red, and then format that for a red cell and click OK. And now, depending on whether or not we put blue in there or red, the color will change. Obviously, this is not a super helpful example that you would use in the workplace, but this is a pretty simple way to explain what you could use a formula for. Let's look at a few more examples of using a formula. Let's create some conditional formatting to highlight cells that are above 100,000. We'll select all of these cells right here. And in our earlier examples, we just selected this greater than option, which is sufficient. But let's go in and manually create this to get a little more practice seeing what this would do. Type equals, and then let's select this C2 and type greater than 100,000, and then format it for green. You'll notice that dollar signs automatically appear in this formula, which means that cell reference will be locked. So when it's applying this cell formatting to row 3, it's still going to look at row 2. For example, if we click OK, there are no cells highlighted because cell C2 is still below 100,000. If we change cell C2 to above 100,000, then everything is selected. So let's clear that rule. And this time when we make the rule, let's not use those dollar signs, so we can just type equals C2 is greater than 100,000 and click this green shading. And now the shading is only appearing when we're looking at values over 100,000. So be sure when you're using your formulas that you're also paying attention to the absolute cell references. Let's look at another example here. This is some data that's a little more involved here. We've got sales rep, customer, and revenue again. But then we have this dollar change from last year and then this percent change from last year as well. And let's say we wanted to highlight all customers that either had change from last year above $10,000 or above 10%. One tip for creating rules in conditional formatting is that this formula box is not super helpful. If you type a formula or a function, it's not going to give you the screen tips that you would normally see in a spreadsheet. So what I find helpful is to create a formula in an adjacent column, kind of a dummy column, and create my formula to return a true or a false, and then I copy and paste that into the conditional formatting box. So again, let's say that we wanted to highlight any customer where the dollar change was greater than $10,000 or the percent change was greater than 10%. The key phrase there being or. So we'll use the or function to help us out. The OR function will return a true or a false if any of the conditions that we specify are true. So here, we'll select the dollar change from last year is greater than $10,000, press a comma, and then the percent change needs to be above 10%, or you could write 0.1 there as well. And now just to double check, this makes sense. Both of these conditions are above the 10%. We can pull that formula down and just double check that we've written the formula correctly. So here's an example where the dollar change is above 10,000, but the percent change is below 10, but it's still returning a true. So now we've got a formula that works. We'll take this and copy it. And then if we wanted to highlight the customers where that condition was true, we'll select the customer column, come in here to new rule, and use a formula to determine which cells to format. We'll paste that function in here again, and then click the format. And let's pick this dark green and maybe change the font color to white and bold. Why not? And click OK. Now, wherever we saw that true, we're also seeing the change in the conditional formatting. We'll undo that. One other thing that's useful is you can reference cells within your formula as well. And in this formula, instead of typing 10,000 exactly, we'll select this cell right here. And instead of the 10%, we'll select this cell right here. And we'll lock those cell references because we don't want them to move. So now we can type a 10,000 right there and a 10% right there. We'll select all of this and then come in here to create our formula. And we'll do the same coloring as before. Now the benefit is we can manually change this number and it will flow through to the formulas in our conditional formatting. So let's say if instead of 10,000, we wanted it to be above 5,000, now these two companies are going to be changing as well. So obviously with this formula setting, you can do almost anything you want with conditional formatting. The biggest challenge that I see people struggle with is coming up with that formula that returns a true or a false. Sometimes you might have to get creative, but again, for me, the easiest thing to do is to try and type the formula out in an actual cell and then just copy and paste it.